You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those nerds! Nerds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining me tonight is Lisa Gullickson.
Quick, suck it before the venom reaches my heart.
The Wife Dork.
Now he'll have to decide what really matters to him when the laughter stops, and what he's willing to give to the Twilight Zone.
And I am your host, Brad Gullickson.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
The Mouth Dork. Made it, Ma! Top of the world! Yeah!
Hello.
Oh, what's that echo?
Where is everybody?
Oh, it's just Brad and Lisa in the Dork Cave tonight.
A BNL cast.
Yeah, Darren had family, Brian had work. What's going on? We've never had a BNL cast.
We have not.
Now, we've done like ItMod chat casts together.
That's true.
And we've done Lost Weekends together. We've done Sundance together. But we've never done an official Weekend Dork / review cast together. This is a little strange.
It is a little weird, but I don't know. It's getting kind of cozy in the Dork Cave.
Yeah, Darren and Brian better watch out.
We can finally podcast with our pants off and it not be weird.
Lisa, even with them, we podcast with no clothes on. Every listener should know that every episode of In the Mouth of Dorkness is recorded buck-ass nude.
It's better for sound, really, because, you know, when you wear a lot of clothes, it just absorbs the vibes, the waves, sound waves.
Oh, okay, okay. So here's the thing. It's been a while since we've done a Weekend Dork. We had Lost Weekend 11 a couple weeks back.
It was amazing. I
hope everyone has listened to our Lost Weekend 11 debrief that we recorded live from within the Green Turtle.
But you know, we didn't have to debrief because we were naked. Sorry.
We were not naked. You can't talk over me, Lisa.
I know.
You're losing it. One of the great things about attending Lost Weekend is meeting up with the other sponsors. Of course, we were there to cheer on Jordan Peele with us. We sponsored that film. It was a great screening to kick off Thursday night. Had a blast.
I feel like Jordan Peele really needed the help from us.
Yes, he's sending flowers as we speak to the Dork Cave. I'm sure.
Slow it down, Jordan Peele. We know you're grateful.
But we also had the opportunity to meet with other sponsors, and we hung out with Steven from Four Color Fantasies.
Love that guy.
He's so cool, and he is going to guest star on a future ItMod chatcast.
Ooh.
Yeah, it'll be dropping on Wednesday, so keep your ears tuned for that. But he wanted to make our listeners aware of a really cool charity event that they are doing at the Four Color Fantasies comic book shop in Winchester, Virginia. They are partaking in a silent auction of over 50 sketch covers done by professional and local artists, with all the money going to the Literacy Volunteers Winchester area. That's covers by folks like Jeff Lemire, Mike Perkins, Jim Moffat, and many other talented artists. Bidding actually started on April 1st and ends on Free Comic Book Day, May 4th. And you can go to their Facebook page to see the rest of the details. But you got to know, one of those sketch covers, the one that he's talking about there about Lemire, is a Batman/Shadow cover. It's stunning.
Sounds like that's needed in the Dork Cave.
It does, and I haven't placed a bid on it yet because I feel a little funny about participating in it since we know those sponsors.
It's for charity.
But it is for charity, right? I can place a bid. It's for charity.
And if anybody is intimidated by how badly we want that cover, I mean, it's not our fault.
Yeah, I think, okay, you've convinced me, Lisa. I'll place a bid on it.
And nobody else is allowed to.
I really don't want to because it is gorgeous. I mean, I love Lemire's style already, and rarely do I get to see it in the context of Gotham City, and I certainly don't get to see it in the context of The Shadow.
Sweet Tooth.
Sweet Tooth. Yeah, Sweet Tooth.
Yes.
Black Hammer. Lisa, you haven't even started reading Black Hammer yet?
I have
You
not.
got to do that.
Oh, my.
So head on over to Four Color Fantasies Facebook page. Take a look at it. Place a bid on that Batman sketch cover, but know that you're competing directly with me.
And if you're ever in Winchester, go to the Four Color Fantasy store because it's a cool little.
It's a cool store.
It's like in like a little house.
Yeah. It's pretty unique.
You can flip through their
environment.
back issues.
Yeah. That sounds dirty. Ooh, flipping through back issues. All the hairs went up on my arms.
I guess I won't talk about how erotic the smell is.
Yeah, no. Or the Mylar bags. Lisa,
Yes.
on that note, how was your weekend dork?
My weekend dork was amazing. I am in particularly good spirits because this morning we kicked off this dork day by watching the Mavis documentary on HBO.
About Mavis Staples,
About
for those
Mavis
that don't
Staples.
know.
That woman is such a cool lady. I need to make her one of my inspirations of my life. The way she does everything with just selflessness and joy.
And passion.
She loves what she does. She's done like 7 decades of music.
Yeah.
And still loves to tour. Still loves her dad, Pop Staples.
Still loves telling the stories of her life, and they are epic.
Yeah, and we watched this soon after listening to an interview she did on You Made It Weird. And the fact that Mavis Staples has been on the comedian Pete Holmes' podcast, You Made It Weird, is very weird.
And also super cool.
But, she lives the stuff that Pete Holmes loves to talk about. Not comedy so much, but she loves to talk about God. All the music she does, even if it's secular music, goes back to her gospel roots, singing about peace and joy. And she loves to talk about sex, and she loves to talk about how she broke old poor Bobby Dylan's heart, and how they may have smooched a little.
They definitely smooched a little.
But that's not what I want to talk about for my weekend dork, Brad.
But it's on HBO, and I would recommend folks, if you're at all interested in not just the Staples singers, but the Stax music scene, Motown in general.
Or you just want to see someone who is infused with passion for what she does. She is loving life.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. It's a few years old, but I don't think it really made the rounds properly, and it deserves your attention.
Yeah, if you know about Mavis Staples, you're not going to learn anything new. But it's just an opportunity to bask in her iridescent glory.
Yes.
She is amazing. And any opportunity to celebrate her, it's good for your soul to celebrate Mavis Staples.
Amen.
Amen.
So what are you talking about?
I want to talk about The Twilight Zone, Jordan Peele's new take on the classic morality tale supernatural series.
Just like he needed our help with us, he needs our help with The Twilight Zone. He actually probably does need a little help with The Twilight Zone because it's on CBS All Access. I don't think the world has gotten on that tip just yet, despite Star Trek Discovery being totally rad.
Absolutely amazing. Loving it.
And now that it has The Twilight Zone as well, absolutely essential streaming service.
Yes.
For 2 shows. And you can also stream Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, as well.
And then, once you put your credit card information, you won't even feel the money leaving. That's what I've learned about collecting streaming services. They're like Pokemon.
Yeah,
you gotta catch them all.
We still have a Fandor account, Lisa.
Do we really?
We do.
So we've got Netflix, Amazon Prime, CBS All Access, Shudder.
Cinemax, Shudder.
Cinemax. We have Cinemax?
I recently got it so I could watch a particular Larry Cohen movie. Let's not dwell on it. I got to cancel a few of those maybe.
I feel like I'm just holding all aces. I'm winning at life with all of the streaming services.
But The Twilight Zone. Talk about why you love The Twilight Zone so much. Because I enjoyed the first 2 episodes, but it seems like you really dug them.
First and foremost, I love the original Twilight Zone series. I associate it with, there was a... let me get real, folks.
Oh, no.
I almost failed out of college my first 2 years. And so I had to take a lot of summer classes. And so one summer I was retaking biology, and so I had to have like the proper class and then the lab. And the way it was done over the summer, there was like a 3-hour break in between the lab and the class, and I would use that time to watch and rewatch old episodes of Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone.
Time well spent.
It was, and it, like, I love the kind of weird headspace the Twilight Zone idea gets you into. You start seeing signs, you start getting suspicious, and I like the fact that it's a modern way to do like a fable, like, hey, don't be selfish. Hey, what are your priorities? Like that kind of idea. And with Jordan Peele now taking that idea of the morality play in like supernatural science fiction genre adjacent.
He's basically already doing Twilight Zone cinematically with Get Out and Us.
Totally in the spirit, in that same vein. So these first 2 episodes, the first episode is called The Comedian, and it stars one of my favorite comedians who is blowing up right now, and it's crazy, and that's Kumail Nanjiani. He plays the episode is kind of a Faustian tale where he's the comedian, he's on stage, he's not getting laughs, so he goes to the bar, he's feeling dejected, and Tracy Morgan is there, and Tracy Morgan's like, if you want to be a comedian, if you want to get the laughs, you have to give something of your life.
And you have to stop focusing on all this political mumbo jumbo that you're spouting.
He's moralizing from the stage, trying to do bits about... He's really trying to get a bit off the ground about the Second Amendment.
And no laughs. No laughs around the Second Amendment, apparently.
The Second Amendment... Not very funny.
Not funny.
Not funny. So he starts using parts of his real life on the stage, being vulnerable, and he starts getting laughs, but then he notices some strange things happening.
It's not
I don't
that
want to
he's
give
just doing like vulnerable material. He's doing material that attacks people he knows in real life.
I feel like we're getting spoilery adjacent.
Oh, okay.
But I love the casting. I think that the idea of using Kumail Nanjiani to play a comedian is obviously perfect, and he does a great job. And Tracy Morgan, it creates like this kind of alternate reality adjacent thing that I enjoy. You have nothing to say about it?
I mean, I really enjoyed that first episode, and I felt like it writes itself. While I could see the ending coming from a mile away, it's still a really satisfying ending, and I feel like the ending of that first episode could only go that way. So, thumbs up, totally in the spirit of Twilight Zone. There's been some complaints online about the amount of profanity in the show and how...
I didn't even notice the profanity.
There's several F-bombs and what have you.
Grow up, people.
I think the complaint that some people have is that Twilight Zone should be an all-ages type of show because that's how we experienced it in our youth, and we got a lot of our own morality from the morality that they were spewing. Mm-hmm. But guess what? Lisa and I are the type of people who do not care about swearing. Words are just words. Kids can hear the F-bombs. It's no big deal. Let them say it in school. Let's take the power away from the F-bomb.
Yeah, I love how... my niece June is being taught the idea of at-home words and school words.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the way to do it. Just go, this is the language for polite company, and this is the language for when you're on a fucking podcast.
Honestly, I feel a lot more strongly about the profanity that has been slightly used in Star Trek Discovery than I do in the Twilight Zone. Because profanity has not really been introduced in that world yet, but I got over myself and I got over my problems with canon with Discovery, and I'm enjoying it for what it is.
I don't mind. We're changing subjects. Oh my goodness, a tangent. I'm getting
on
whiplash. I don't mind swearing on Star Trek, but not on the bridge.
Oh,
because I feel like in the engine room or whatever,
that's where the sailors are.
No, I'm saying like that's a more casual place to be. But when you're on the bridge, that's like you are at work when you're on the bridge.
The joke of Star Trek IV was that when the crew of the Enterprise went back to the 1980s, and it's like Double Dumbass on You and Middle Fingers and Harold Robbins novels, that the 23rd century had evolved so much beyond the base language of our reality that it was this humorous experience for these evolved science officers to be assaulted by Double Dumbass on You. And so if they're using Double Dumbass on You already in the universe of Star Trek, the joke of Star Trek IV is not as funny anymore.
But we know that there's time travel involved in Star Trek Discovery, and who knows? This could be a completely different timeline. We have no idea.
I mean, I do think it's a different timeline, and I think
is going on.
What's happening in the second season is going to solve a lot of issues.
Christopher Pike in that last episode.
So good. Okay. All right. Did you want to talk about the second episode of The Twilight Zone before we move on?
I will. It's called, so it's a take on the one where there was like the William Shatner episode.
Gremlin on the Wing of the Plane.
Where there's a gremlin on the wing of the plane.
Nightmare at 30,000 Feet, based on a Richard Matheson short story.
That's why I didn't Google it. I know that Brad has this information at his fingertips. It's not IMDb. It's Brad is DB.
I am a DB. That's douchebag, right?
Yes. And this particular episode stars Adam Brody?
No, Adam Scott.
Adam Scott. I'm getting my
Brody
Adams
will
mixed
come
up
in our review cast at the back half of this episode.
That's the problem is Brad and I are of one mind and things get mixed up in our one big mind. But it's because I was thinking about that's why, because I was thinking about Shazam.
Yeah, I know. Boy, the listeners are loving.
His adult face is haunting me.
Let's not start spoiling Shazam already.
Okay.
The BNL show is getting off the rails.
You see why we highly edit the CBCC podcast. You guys should be subscribed to that, by the way. So it's a take on that episode that Brad said the full title of.
Nightmare at 30,000 Feet.
Thank you. But it is Adam Scott. And instead of there being a gremlin, it's a kind of a spin-off of like the idea of true crime podcast or Serial or something like that. He finds an old like Zune or something in the pocket of the plane. And he puts
some
on,
MP3 player.
Yeah, and he puts on old school headphones and he turns on the podcast and it's talking about the disappearance of the plane that he is currently on.
Yeah.
And so he's like going like, could this be real? And clearly this is real and I need to alert people. And it's this idea. Oh, and he also had he is a journalist and he had some kind of traumatic experience when he was doing
overseas,
some war coverage. So it's that same idea of dealing with trauma and people not taking people with mental illnesses seriously.
While they remove the gremlin off the wing of the plane, they still basically deal with the same idea of paranoia.
Yeah.
And the unraveling psyche of this particular passenger. And Adam Scott does that so well. He Shatners the hell out of this performance.
He does. And in this case, Shatners the hell out is a good thing.
Shatners the hell out is always a good thing, Lisa.
Keep telling yourself that, sweetie.
Take it back.
I will never take it back.
Shatner's great in that original Nightmare at 30,000 Feet.
Not only is he great, but he is super handsome.
Yeah, very handsome, very handsome. So, okay, we're 2 episodes into the Twilight Zone. You're giving it 2 big thumbs up.
I'm stoked. I've been peeking a poo. That's a new saying. I just came up with it. Zeitgeist, take it over. I've peeked a poo onto the final episode. I'm super stoked because it's going to be starring Chris O'Dowd. It's called The Blue Scorpion. I love the casting. All of these comedy adjacent.
Well, because everybody loves the Twilight Zone. Everyone wants to be a part of it, and Jordan Peele is producing it. We haven't even talked about the fact that he is literally the Rod Serling character.
He is amazing as the Rod Serling character, and he has like the most perfect stony face, like when he's making that like dead eye contact into the camera and delivering his narration, it's like, mwah.
I do find myself giggling a little bit because I'm still in that Key and Peele place.
Oh, yeah.
So seeing him do Rod Serling is also quite humorous to me.
It's
but he is good,
weird
I agree.
Because it's like, I want him to hold me, but I know that it's going to be like a cold hold.
Oh, what? Cold hold? Oh,
Yeah, because he's in his Rod Serling mode.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's
All
just
right.
like, yeah, I feel the squeeze, but do I feel the warmth? I do not.
Do you feel like you're ready to go back and watch Key and Peele sketches? I know they
Never.
disturbed you.
I do not like sketch. For those of you maybe new to the podcast, or it's been a while since I've talked about it, I do not like sketch, and it is because it turns out that I can't take a joke, and and particularly with Key and Peele sketches, they have a tendency to make me just openly weep.
Yeah, so good. The Hype Man episode.
The
you
Hype
burst
Man
into
episode,
tears.
oh my gosh, so sad. Or the one about the guy who's like ordering pizzas.
Yeah.
That one made me really, really sad.
But they're so funny, Lisa. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're not ready to go back to Key and Peele.
They're too good of actors to be, like, for me, like with
That's
sketch,
why the show's so good.
Either everybody's breaking and I'm watching everybody act, which I don't find particularly fun, or with Key and Peele, their acting is way too amazing, and then all of a sudden I've given my heart to the Hype Man, and I don't want to see him look out on that lake.
Yeah, get old Yellard. All right, okay. So you're excited about the third episode. You're on board. I'm enjoying this series. I'm excited to see where it goes. I don't think I'm as fully in love with it as you are, but I am in love with the idea of it being back.
Do you have any specific complaints that are holding you from full-on loving? Because
I mean, I think the first episode was really enjoyable. It felt like a little bit of an imitation of the Twilight Zone, but a good imitation. Way better than the show from the late 80s, early 90s.
I feel like it's setting a tone, like with that classic vibe. I think the deeper we get into the series, the further we'll get from that formulaic. That's what I'm anticipating. Because it's the same with the second episode, where it's a take on an
Right,
original.
and I will say that the back half of that second episode did not at all work for me. I really enjoyed the buildup and the performances and the look of the second episode, but the
you like
final
how it
revelation, yeah, I did not like the revelation.
Because it is a huge departure from the original
And it's
episode.
not because it's a departure. I'm
It
sure.
is.
No, I'm sure we're going to have this
This is
conversation.
going to come up with Shazam.
No. Look, it's not because they changed the original story. I just straight up think the conclusion of the second episode of the Twilight Zone is not particularly interesting.
Boo.
And that's fine. I guess we should
We're
move on.
allowed to disagree.
Is that your end of Weekend Dork?
It is. So, Brad,
Yes.
how was your weekend, Dork?
I had a great Weekend Dork.
Of course you did.
Yeah, well, as always.
Living life right.
It's April. That means Avengers Endgame is right around the corner.
I'm so excited.
Darren, Brian, and myself have been texting back and forth with each other constantly, just saying, like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And we haven't even talked about the fact that getting the tickets to Avengers Endgame this past week was a total nightmare.
I was having some major Comic-Con flashbacks.
You know, we woke up at, 8 a.m. Darren and Brian were already, in the thick of it, trying to get tickets, not being able to penetrate Fandango, not being able to penetrate Alamo or AMC's websites. We kept getting put into waiting rooms, and it'd be like 10 minutes until you can purchase your ticket. And then we would get into the purchase mode, and then we would be booted out, and then we'd get back into the waiting room, and it'd say, you have an hour. And, we would call the Alamo Drafthouse up on phone, but nobody was answering their phones because everybody on this planet wants to see Avengers Endgame right now. And that meant that Brad and Lisa had to throw on some clothes before we even had a shower yet.
It doesn't take two people to buy tickets, but this is something we had to do as a family.
Yes. And so we drove our butts out to the Alamo Drafthouse in Ashburn. There was a line waiting to purchase tickets. And this was the first time in 20 years, not since I waited in line to get tickets for The Phantom Menace, have I gone to a physical theater to purchase tickets. And while I understand everybody was frustrated and freaking out, and maybe they didn't get the seats that they wanted or in the theaters that they wanted, it was incredibly exciting to see all these people freaking out about Avengers Endgame. I love this passion.
It was super fun. And it reminded me of like back in the day, if you wanted to go see a concert, you would have to like go to Tower Records and buy a physical ticket and then not lose it.
And, you know, people were complaining like, why don't they get their systems up and running? This is always an issue. And frankly, this was the only time this was the only time I had never, ever gotten into one of the apps.
Yeah.
In the past, maybe I couldn't get into Alamo, but I could get into Fandango or AMC or Atom Tickets or something like that. But this time, I couldn't get into anybody.
I love that because that means the world is excited. The traffic was unanticipatable.
Yeah, and the thing is, now you look at the ticket sales for Endgame, the pre-ticket sales, and they were 3 times the amount of Infinity War, at least at the Alamo Drafthouse. Mm-hmm. It just shows you that there is a massive swelling crowd for this movie that really that the system has not experienced.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm stoked. We did get our tickets for Thursday, back-to-back screenings for all the dorks. Mm-hmm. We're so excited to record that review cast. It's going to be madness, just like this B&L episode. It's just full-on screaming, and I cannot wait. And in anticipation of Avengers Endgame, I'm doing my rewatch of the MCU. I'm already past Doctor Strange. And at Film School Rejects, they're republishing my Marvel articles one day at a time. Punched up, revised. And I will be writing new articles for Avengers Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Captain Marvel.
I cannot wait.
And I'm just loving this enthusiasm for the MCU. And if it's not your thing, I understand. But clearly it is your thing because everybody on the planet bought tickets on this past week.
Yeah, they did.
So I'm excited for all of us. I guess that's not really what I wanted to talk about.
What do you want to talk about, Brad?
You know, it's just you and me. We can go on tangents. We can freak out. We don't have to edit ourselves with Darren and Brian because they have things that they want to talk about. We can just take over and fill all the space selfishly.
Ah, yeah.
So I can say many things about my weekend dork.
I'm always pretty selfish with my weekend dork.
I had an opportunity to see an advanced screening of the new Laika Studios movie Missing Link. Listeners may remember that I was flown out to Portland to visit the sets of the film, take a look at all the puppets, the costumes.
Put your thumbprints in all of the clay.
Yeah, and I took full advantage of that, and it was a great trip, and you could read my set visit report on Film School Rejects. And now I finally got to see the movie, and I'm happy to report that it is one of the better Laika Studios films.
Better than Paranorman?
I need to rewatch Paranorman. I don't think so. Paranorman's probably still my favorite.
It's one of my all-time faves.
It is from the same director as Paranorman, Chris Butler, and he also wrote the script and designed all the characters for Missing Link. So it has a very singular vision to it. And the characters look a little different than the usual Laika style. They're a little more extreme. They have a new 3D printer that they're using to construct their figures. So they're even more outlandish than what we've seen in the past. And it's an all-adult adventure story. No kids in this one.
Good.
I don't know if I necessarily mean it like good, but it does feel different than what we've seen with Box Trolls, Kubo and the Two Strings, Paranorman, Coraline. This is much more of a around the world in 80 days kind of thing. It's a globetrotting adventure. The basic premise is that Hugh Jackman plays Sir Lionel Frost, an explorer who is on the hunt for these cryptozoological creatures like the Loch Ness Monster. The movie opens with the Loch Ness Monster. And he wants in on this society of noble explorers, and they want nothing to do with him because what he explores is preposterous. Mm-hmm. And he gets a letter from the Pacific Northwest in America saying, we have proof of a Bigfoot. Come out to Oregon and meet the Bigfoot. I'll show you the Bigfoot. And this happens in the first 10 minutes. I don't think it's a spoiler. I think it's even in the trailers. But the letter was written by the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch.
What?
And the Sasquatch is voiced by Zach Galifianakis.
Fun.
And he is so wonderful in the role. I love the design of the Bigfoot. I love the voice performance from him. I like the vocal performances from everybody, but I think Galifianakis in particular is a real delight. I desperately need action figures of Link.
Yes.
And the film becomes this story of finding your loved ones, finding your place, your family. The Bigfoot is alone in the Pacific Northwest, and he's heard these stories about Yetis in the Himalayas. And the reason he's called Sir Lionel Frost to his way is that he needs a guide. He needs somebody to help him get from the Pacific Northwest across the United States, across the ocean, across Europe, through Asia to the Himalayas, so he can reunite with his cousins, or unite with his cousins. And at the same time, there are villains of the piece. The British Society of Noble Explorers have hired this gunslinger, and I think the gunslinger's name is Stank.
Yep, played by Timothy Oliphant.
Played by Timothy Oliphant.
I have the IMDb open.
Thank you. Oliphant is also a great voice in this.
Oh, I'm sure.
And he is such a despicable character and a lot of fun to be the polar opposite of Hugh Jackman's refined gentleman explorer. I highly recommend to our listeners seeking this out when it comes to theaters on April 12th, I want to say. Is that accurate? You have it up there, Lisa, on the right? Yeah, April 12th. It's a pure delight. It's a visual feast. There's more sets and puppets and character designs than you've seen in any other Laika film. And, you know, because it's globetrotting, there's a lot of different color flavors and different set pieces and action set pieces for them to experience. There's one particular scene that feels straight out of Christopher Nolan's Inception. Cool. You'll know it when you see it. Highly, highly, highly recommend Missing Link. It's one of my favorite films of the year so far.
I cannot wait to put my eye tongues on those color flavors.
They're pretty tasty, Lisa.
What was it like seeing the sets? Like, was it unreal? Like, seeing the sets that you saw IRL on the big screen?
It was very geeky, and I love stop motion animation. It's one of my favorite styles of filmmaking, and being able to walk through the forest, or actually my favorite set is the Old West town where they first meet Stank and they get into a bar brawl with the Sasquatch. That set, I waded into the middle of that set, had my photo taken in it.
Like on the floor? You stood on the floor?
No, because the way all the sets are elevated, right? Because the artists have to operate the puppets. So the floor is like stomach level. And, I waded into the set and I got to look through the windows of these buildings, because it's not like they're false front buildings. They are full on buildings that they had to construct for these scenes because they didn't know where they wanted to put the camera on any given day.
Wow.
And so being able to be in that Old West town, being able to look into the cave of the Sasquatch, and the town, the Himalayan Shangri-La set is gorgeous. The ship set is gorgeous. So it's surreal, and it's very geeky, very geeky.
As a claymation stop motion animation.
It's not claymation.
I know.
It's puppets.
It is puppets. But as a stop motion animation fan, well, I guess that answers my question. Do you feel like using a 3D printer is cheating?
Well, Laika does a lot of different things to achieve their film. Not all the characters are puppets in their movies. A lot of the characters are totally CG creation.
No!
They are...
Next thing you're going to tell me is that the Lego movies aren't made out of Legos.
I hate to break the news to you, Lisa. They're not. I would say that all the hero characters are puppets, but not the background characters. And when you're watching that ballroom brawl, most of those people in that brawl are computer generated. Boo. And they also do a lot of face replacements with the puppets. So it's a Laika adopts every type of technology to tell their story. So it's not exactly what Harryhausen would have done, or Henry Selick in The Nightmare Before Christmas did. It's different, and it has a flawless, very crisp look that separates it from, say, Isle of Dogs or Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys who worked on Fantastic Mr. Fox are a lot of the same guys who worked on Missing Link. It's the same production designer and a lot of the puppet makers too.
I guess I can't get mad.
It's so beautiful. How can you get mad at how beautiful it is? And you can't tell. I mean, there are times when you go, okay, well, that water is clearly CG or that cloud is clearly CG. But the background players, you can't tell that they're not puppets.
Okay, I just feel like...
You feel cheated. You asked the question because you had the answer.
Yeah, something is feeling a little shattered.
Well, I'm sorry. You're going to love this film. This movie was definitely made for Lisa.
Yay! I love movies for me.
I guess that's where I'll stop on my Weekend Dork, and we can take a little break. And on the back half of this show, we are going to be doing a full spoiler review cast of the new DCEU film, if that's even still a thing, Shazam. So hold that thought, go to the bathroom, get a drink, and meet us back here after the noise break or the musical cue or whatever Darren puts in at this point.
Okay, thanks, Darren.
Thanks, Darren, for editing this.
Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
And we're back. Did Darren put a little jingle there? I don't know.
We don't know.
You guys do. I hope you enjoyed it.
What did Lisa and Brad do during the break? Did they stop to have a super hot makeout sesh?
No, Lisa
It's not as hot without Darren and Brian watching.
No, that is true. That is true. You're a super freak. But what you actually did was...
I made some tea.
You made some tea and you're currently steeping it.
It's steeping.
Yeah, I did some tweets.
You did. So it's just status quo during the break.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are. We're talking about the new DC Warner Brothers superhero film directed by David F. Sandberg, Shazam.
Shazam.
Starring Zachary Levi as the champion himself, Angel Asher as Billy Batson, Mark Strong as Dr. Thaddeus Savannah. That guy can't catch a break as far as supervillain work goes. Or I guess that's all the breaks he can catch. He's always the villain.
He's catching all these breaks.
He's catching a lot of villain breaks. All right, Lisa. So should we do a good, the bad, and the ugly like show? Should we start with the good?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to pass it to you.
Okay.
Shazam.
And Zam.
The good.
I liked this movie just to start out. I really enjoyed it. I found it super fun.
Why are you saying that like you're on the attack?
Well, I just want to give like an overarching... It's because I know all of your thoughts already. We've had this discussion.
I liked it.
I feel like I don't like that tone. But what I did like the tone of was Shazam.
Uh-huh.
I liked the fact that it had kind of the buoyant, adventuresome spirit of like an 80s movie.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the big reference.
Yeah. I mean, it's a direct reference to Big. I mean, they have the whole keyboard and everything.
Thing.
Yeah.
Though I was disappointed that him and Mark Strong didn't do a quick duet.
No chopsticks in the film.
No, not this time. I enjoyed that aspect. I enjoyed the whole... to me, it tracks the idea of if a, kid gets turned into a superhero, the first thing he's going to do is make some rad YouTube vids and buy some beer.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was fun. And I thought Zachary Levi, this is my favorite thing he's done since Chuck.
Okay, good.
Huge Chuck fan.
Chuck's better. Come on, Lisa.
And I like Tangled too. But this is even better than Tangled. I think he makes
Put that on the poster.
Even better than Tangled. He makes a real hilarious big kid. I thought his acting as a grown-up looking 14-year-old.
Yeah, he's got that cartoon
really
face.
Tracked. Yeah, he does.
He's good in the role. Yeah.
He's like kind of confusing handsome. It's just like, how could you both be handsome and super nerdy? I don't get it, but it's wonderful. Yeah, I like the movie. I'll probably think of more things that I like after I hear the things you like.
All right. I mean, I agree. I like the general idea of what they've done with the character, which is where the bigification of Shazam began in DC's New 52, that the miniseries that Jeff Johns and Gary Frank did. And this film is almost a direct adaptation of that book. They remove Black Adam, but pretty much everything else beyond that, it comes from the source material. Even, the buying the beer and getting the money from the ATM machine and that stuff.
So I found that villainous. I wish he hadn't done that.
Well,
he should feel bad about taking money from the ATM.
Think we could talk about this later, or maybe I'll talk about this later. The idea of why is Billy Batson selected by the wizard Shazam for his pure heart when his first inclination is to get money to buy beer?
Well, banks are evil, and we know that, and they do need to be busted.
True.
And I think that one instance of goodness he did it's in the trailer, and we're doing a spoilery.
Yeah, we're spoiling the whole thing.
I think he had a pure heart the moment that he helped his foster brother, in that instance, and that sliver of goodness was enough to at least get him through the door, because the people who get through the door of the Shazam layer,
we learn that there's lots of people who go to the Rock of Eternity,
and a lot of them don't make it. So
all of them have not made it.
Nobody's made it. So
except for Black Adam, who ruined it all.
So I don't know what Brad's talking about. So I think that you just have to be pure of heart in an instant, and then you have to face the statues and do the whole thing. Grab that staff.
Okay. But see, when Billy grabbed that staff and he said Shazam for the first time, the sins were already escaped. So he was never tested by the sins in the Rock of Eternity.
Oh, that's true. But I mean, that goes to show why, he was just the last hope, so he couldn't help at all. You know what I mean? The test was gone, so they're like, well, I have to go with this guy because I'm about to become a dust pile. Yeah.
All right, you make that's an excellent point. So maybe Billy isn't a kid of pure heart. He's just the last chance. And once he is finally once he becomes the champion, once he says the word and he inhabits this superhuman body, it's really Freddy that guides him in his actions. Freddy is the foster brother that he has just been saddled with, and Freddy is obsessed with superheroes, Batman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman. He wears all their t-shirts, buys all their merchandise, buys, the collectible Batarang off of eBay, and he's the one who eventually says, look, all this stuff we're doing with the YouTube testing of powers and getting the alcohol and getting the money, that's really not what a superhero should be doing, and you should live up to the abilities that you have. Freddy basically tells him, with great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
So now, as we're talking about it, I really like how he eventually accepts his place as the champion.
I love the turning point of where he goes you're just jealous because I've got these powers and you don't. And he's like, of course I'm jealous. If anybody could use these powers, it's me, a crippled foster child who knows everything about superheroes. Of course.
Right.
And I think that is a real turning point for Billy, but also inspires his final act.
Yeah, right. I don't want to get there just yet.
Right.
I do want to talk about the Foster house. I love the house itself. Billy was abandoned by his mother many years ago, and he's been searching for her ever since, and he's been busting into cop cars trying to get access to their database, and he just keeps getting in more and more trouble. He's been passed around from foster home to foster home to foster home, and he finally lands in this place where there's two people. There's a couple who are foster survivors themselves. Is that the proper terminology? Probably not. I'm sorry if I offended anybody.
They're foster adults.
Yeah, they're foster adults.
They came from the foster system. I think that's what it's called.
And, there are, 4 kids in that house, all dealing with their own problems and their own traumas, and Billy has to find his place within that group. I think that's a really interesting dynamic, and the film does make time for maybe not all of them to have their big scenes, but they all feel like real characters in the few moments that they are given. Of course, I want more Mary. I love Darla. I would have loved more Darla. But it's really about the relationship between Freddie and Billy inside that home. And that relationship really works. I think Asher Angel and Jack Glazer have a really good chemistry, and Jack Glazer and Zachary Levi have fantastic chemistry together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So whenever they're on screen, I'm having a blast.
I also love the casting of the parents, Cooper Andrews and Marta Millans.
Yep.
I thought the fact that they were just a really sweet couple, genuine. They were still struggling to keep their family together, and heartbroken when Billy disappears. I don't know.
But they also understand that Billy disappearing is not surprising.
Right.
And there's that great line in the film where the father or the male adult tells...
I think he's the father.
Okay.
Let's call him the father.
All right.
Victor.
So the moment where Victor tells his wife, look, you told me once that it's not a home until you call it a home.
Mm-hmm.
So until Billy calls this place a home, it won't be his home. That is philosophically, wow. That's awesome. I love that that idea and the way it is worded there within the context of Shazam.
And I love how it comes together at the end of the film where he really does find his family.
Yeah.
His home.
His Shazam family. I think Mark Strong is really good as Savannah.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun. He's chewing up the scenery. He's doing what Mark Strong does best. I think the design of the sins, the 7 deadly sins that invade his body, the personification of the sins, are really scary and also exceptionally well executed. They're
funny.
not just CGI messes.
No, they look really cool. They have a true presence, particularly in that
the boardroom
scene.
Yeah, and John Glover's in the film playing Mark Strong's dad.
Yeah.
And John Glover interacting with the sins was wonderful. And at times I'm like, are those practical suits? Clearly their faces are all CGI'd up, but at times I feel like they had people on set in sin suits. I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but either way, they look fantastic.
For some reason, I kept on misjudging which sin was which. I was like, that one that just kind of opens up like that. That's lust, right? Because it's shaped like a big vagina. And Brad's like, no, that's his belly. He's gluttony, obviously. Then I was like, what about the ones with the grabby hands? Then that's got to be lust. He's like, no, Lisa, that is greed.
Yeah, that's greed.
So which one was lust?
Lust was the one
tongues.
with the tongue.
With the
Yeah.
tongues.
And I think pride was with the wings, and envy was the little one at the end. Yeah. Wrath was the big giant one.
He could have been littler.
Yeah, he could have been littler. Envy. I don't know. I liked all the bad guy stuff for the most part. They sort of just serve a function of we need a threat and here's your threat. But as superhero origin films go, they were solid. Anything else good wise? I think.
Should we bring up the ending and the caterpillar guy?
Okay, yeah. I mean, good wise, Mr. Mind in the mid-credit sequence.
Brad was beside himself when he saw that little caterpillar.
When you see him early on in the movie, he's in the Rock of Eternity in the trophy room. You see him in the bottle from behind. And when I saw that, I squeed. I squeed big time. And then the mid-credit sequence, to have Mr. Mind talk through his little robotic box around his neck.
Adorable.
I mean, here's a big good of Shazam, right? I think this is the best DC movie to embrace its source material. Now, it's the New 52 source material, but this is the most unabashed, unembarrassed comic book movie to come from the DC cinematic universe.
It's very comic booky. It's not at all cool. Nobody's wearing a leather suit.
I mean, he's got the muscle suit.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's not cool.
It's not like a jacket.
I love the costume.
Yep.
The Shazam costume.
Super dweeby.
Yeah. So I don't know. I enjoyed lots of stuff about the film.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, Lisa.
Yeah.
let's move on to the bad. And of course, if you're talking about the bad, you can talk a little bit about the good if you remember it after the fact. But let's focus on, like, what's your first bad of Shazam?
To me, I thought that the 7 deadly sins idea was not rounded out enough. If you're going to bring in this idea of 7 deadly sins,
they're the personification of 7 deadly sins. They want to rule the world.
I understand exactly what they are, and like I'm just supposed to know, like, okay, yep, 7 deadly sins. I have a mental touchstone from that, but like that's some really strong, like. It's a really strong idea, and I think that you have to like then.
You mean it's a broad idea?
Not a broad idea. It's like it's a really specific idea to bring up to not lean more into the personification of each thing. Like if there's these 7 deadly sins, then we should see an instance. We saw greed, we saw envy, but we never really saw an instance of gluttony. We never really did see an instance. So there was not like...
They're just the personifications. They're just monsters.
Yeah.
Outside of a few design touches, they have nothing to do with the sins themselves.
And I think that's a little lame.
Okay. Fair enough.
And then I feel like there was like another thing. I can't.
I know what your other thing is because we've talked
was?
about it already. But it's the mom storyline.
Oh, yeah. To me, I think it's enough to know that he's a foster kid. He wants to find his mom. I don't think that the flashback was necessarily necessary. And I don't think that him finding his mom, that scene, like, I like the idea of Billy seeing that, like, what she really needs from him in that moment is for him to be okay because her life is such crap. And, like, her life is, like, now with him in this new home, he sees how lucky he ultimately is. But at the same time, the mom is a pretty tragic character to just bring up and then toss away this idea of this 17-year-old girl who has her son wander away, and then she decides to, in that instance, to give him up to the police, and now she is going from abusive relationship to abusive relationship. I mean, like, that's just a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's a lot. I don't think it's fair to single moms. Like, you know, like I don't know. I just think it's a lot.
I don't think the film had to explore that background at all beyond he was abandoned. He has no parents.
I like the idea of the notebook and the idea of, like, he's clinging to the past. He's prioritizing the past, so he's not necessarily relishing his present. Like, I think that that's good, and they could have had the whole. But then, like they could have the whole instance of, you know, them, the siblings doing that searching for him.
Yeah,
and then she could have just been dead.
No, I
don't know, or something.
I don't know. I think you really didn't need to do any of that work. I think just knowing that he's gone from foster home to foster home was enough, and that he has grown up in the system and has not experienced any real familial love until this moment. I think that would have been plenty. Yeah. Can I jump to my bad?
Yeah, go for it.
I think my big bad of the movie is the fact that it starts on the emotional arc of Dr. Savannah. The film begins in the past with Savannah as a child being one of these people who was invited to the Rock of Eternity, took the test of purity, was enticed by the sins, and then rejected by the wizard. And that rejection poisoned Savannah and led him down a life of obsession where he was going to prove himself to this asshole wizard who wanted nothing to do with him, right? Mm-hmm. And I think for a Shazam origin film, it's really weird that the big emotional arc of the movie it begins and kind of ends with Savannah.
Do you think the way you would do the film is have the fact that he had been to see the wizard, a reveal at the end, maybe?
Maybe. I don't know. Like the way Savannah works in this film as having such a connection to the Shazam mythology doesn't quite work for me. I've always sort of appreciated Savannah as just this crazy evil scientist character. And so linking it so closely to what was going on with Shazam and the Wizard and all that jazz doesn't quite work for me, especially how they establish it here in this movie.
I think you could cut that opening scene of him as a child and just go right to him.
Probably.
Him aggressively researching and doing.
I think so.
I think that maybe would have worked better.
Yeah, I think so. Although I do love seeing John Glover as his father in the past, and I like seeing him in the wheelchair in the boardroom.
And I like
love
the
John
boardroom
Glover.
sequence.
And I like the boardroom sequence. So yeah, there was that. I think some of the comedy really did not work for me.
Wrong. I was laughing my ass off the whole movie. Me and Lisa Bell Roden, friend of the podcast, at MuseGirl on Twitter, we were laughing.
You guys were having a good time. I just didn't find it particularly funny. I think there is fun in it, but I don't think it's funny. But that's just a subjective thing. Don't give me that look.
I reject that. It's very funny.
Okay, well, there you go.
Zachary Levi, adorable.
And I think the final battle, as much as I love the children of the foster home breaking off a piece of that Shazam power and all becoming marvelous champions in their own right, as much as I love the imagery of that and the look of that, and a lot of the action of that scene, it could have used a lot more time around it. And I felt that Adam Brody playing Freddy as champion really did not work for me at all.
It was distracting. Like, what's the OC doing here? He's from the OC, right?
Yeah.
I always think of him as Gilmore Girls. He's back. Mary Lane. No, I like who Lane ends up with.
And, like Pedro being like the big chubby kid, turning into like the big
thin guy.
Yeah.
I thought that was lame.
And, Mary gets the skirt, but Darla doesn't get a skirt. Why doesn't Darla get a skirt?
I find it weird. Like, it looked like they did the casting to be like, okay, well, this is the grown-up version of this kid.
But not really.
But then they took
Adam Brody's probably like the best grown-up version of Jack Glazer.
Grace Fulton plays Mary as a college, like she's ready
Senior
to go
in high school.
Senior in high school, she's getting ready to go to college. And then when she turns into superhero Mary, she's played by Michelle Borth. And like she looks like she looks like a completely different person because she is a completely different person. So I found that to be strange. I think they should have just gussied up.
It's interesting how the mythology works in the new 52 versions of the characters.
The bigification of Billy Batson.
Yeah, the bigification. So like we see in movies all the time where we get another adult actor to play the older version of the kid. Actually, Big, right?
Yeah.
So Jonathan in Big is played by one actor, and then Tom Hanks plays his adult self. So our suspension of disbelief is that this kid grows up into Tom Hanks's body. And I guess we're supposed to believe that Asher Angel grows up to be Zachary Levi. And so like Mary is supposed to grow up in just a few years into that person.
And become a completely different person.
It's bizarre to me.
It is weird.
Why they chose that, if that's what's going on. Or are they going by the mythology of the Captain Marvel comics pre-Shazam copyright change, where Billy Batson and Captain Marvel are two separate beings?
I don't think that's true, because Billy Batson remembers everything that Captain Marvel did. Not Captain Marvel.
Well, I mean, that's what, that's how it happened in the past,
so
too.
They're just watching each other live in each other's bodies?
Yeah, basically, yes.
That's bizarre.
I mean, it's a really weird comic book and a really weird concept that I think is so fun if you don't think about it too hard, Lisa.
I loved the translation of Darla, the kid. I thought she was a super cute character, totally believable. I love the translation of her into her adult self into her hero body. Mm-hmm. I thought that was done really, really well.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like all that in theory. I don't know if I necessarily liked it ultimately as a scene in the movie.
Also, I thought I wish that part of the fighting they spent more time fighting together next to each other, because it was like, every hero take a sin.
It felt like, we have these actors on these days, and so you do this scene, you do that scene, what have you. Oh, okay. All right. So any other bads?
I don't think so.
All right. Let's move on to the ugly. What was the ugly of Shazam?
Oh, no. know. I didn't think about it. You go first.
Well, I think what we were talking a little bit about, the body changing with Pedro and some of these kids.
To me, I think that, kids have enough issues with like body shaming. We can't imagine that the best version of a, fat kid is going to be a super svelte
buff
adult.
Dude,
yeah, like that's not fair.
I think that the Sins were incredibly ugly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that gluttony one, as you were saying, with its split belly mouth was pretty
Stomagina.
gross. I guess I really don't have too many uglies on the Shazam. I actually,
the underuse of Digimon Hanzo, that guy's amazing.
Did
I say his name wrong?
Yeah, you did. Jaimin Hansu.
Jaimin Hanzo. It's not my fault. I've only seen it written.
Okay, Lisa.
Thanks.
I think the mom storyline is also pretty ugly.
Yeah.
It doesn't jive with how I'd like that story to be
It's
told.
way too serious for a kid's film.
But there you go. There you have it. Folks were saying that this film was too scary. Jesse Malton on Twitter was saying, don't take your children to see Shazam. It's too violent and monstrous.
What is the MPA?
It's PG-13.
I don't think it's any scarier than any other PG-13 movie. Because she was also saying that that's not the way it's sold in the trailer.
Well, you don't see the monsters at all in the trailer.
That's true.
So they are quite a shock.
But you should, if it's PG-13 movie and you're taking your kid to it, you use some parental guidance. And as a aunt of some pretty cowardly and picky children, kids will get scared and walk out of anything. We were watching Moana as a family, and my niece is like, Maui is scary.
Kids know when things are too much. That's how I've
themselves out of it.
I'll always remember fleeing, screaming during the last Starfighter when that guy's head gets melted. But it's okay to scare children in their movies. It's fine. Don't take them to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but go ahead and take them to see Shazam.
I don't think you have to make an apology for a PG-13 movie.
No.
I wasn't allowed to see PG-13 movies until I was 13 years old.
Yeah. Well, that's sad for you. I was seeing X-rated films by then. Okay, Lisa, that's going to do it for us. Our B&L show is coming to an end.
It was so beautiful, but not meant to last.
What are you excited about this week? You got a very blank expression on your face. It's like you hadn't even thought about it. Are you excited for Missing Link?
Yes. Does that come out this week?
It does. So does Hellboy.
I'm really excited for Missing Link.
Oh, sad.
I'm excited for the next episode of Discovery. I'm excited for the next episode of The Twilight Zone. I am excited for other things. Oh, yeah. For some reason, a Wyatt Cenac show. What was it called on HBO?
I can't remember what it's called.
Apparently, he has a show that's been on HBO, and now they're in the second season. And I was like, I didn't see the last season. I have that to look forward to. That's awesome stuff.
You may not be looking forward to Hellboy, but I'm certainly looking forward to Hellboy.
It'll be fine.
Find Lisa at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter. I'll be talking about Hellboy stuff. I'll be talking about Missing Link stuff. I'm going to be watching all the MCU stuff still. You can find me on Twitter you can find me on all social medias at Mouth Dork. Follow the other dorks, Brian Young at The Turtle Dork. Follow the Indie Dork, Billy Dass at WB Dass. Follow Darren Smith at The Disco Dork. And follow the podcast at ItModcast and give us 5 stars on iTunes.
Why not?
Yeah, do it.
And you should, if you haven't already,
Speak, Lisa.
My podcasting engine is shutting down. You should subscribe to the ItModcast Chatcast. What's our latest step on that, Brad?
On Wednesday will be Al White, and that's what Steven from Four Color Fantasies will be joining us on that episode.
Very cool.
Last week, you can listen to it right now, we had Emilio Estevez on the podcast, and that's nuts. So if you haven't subscribed to the ItMod Chatcast, you should do that. And on this feed, on Friday, we are going to be doing a fistful of Hellboys because Brad is damn excited about a new Hellboy film, even if Lisa is not.
Yep.
So there you go, folks. Until next time.